Hello students, good morning. Today we are going to discuss the structure of the heart. Did you know dark chocolates reduces the risk of heart attack? Yes, that's true. So it's a good news for chocolate lovers. Even I too like dark chocolates. Why do you think dark chocolates are healthier? It's because they contain flavonoids and antioxidants. The disease-fighting antioxidants are present in large amounts in the dark chocolates, and these flavonoids are known to reduce the risk of high blood pressure. Moreover, the amount of sugar and saturated fat in dark chocolates is very less. So you can have one dark chocolate a day to reduce the risk of heart disease. So with this good note, let's start today's class. Here I have drawn the internal structure of the heart. So from outside, the heart is going to look like a conical structure. That is, it is triangular in shape, slightly tilted towards the left. As you can see here, it's slightly tilted towards the left. Now, the mammals, the chambers in the heart are 4. So this is the left auricle, the right auricle, the left ventricle and the right ventricle. So 4 chambers of the heart, 2 auricles and 2 ventricles. Here the 2 auricles are separated in the middle by the interauricular septum. So these 2 auricles are separated by interauricular septum, whereas the 2 ventricles are separated by interventricular septum. The interventricular septum. Similarly, there is a separation between the right auricle and the right ventricle. You call it as the right auriculoventricular septum. Septum means cross wall. Here again there is a separation or a septum which divides the left auricle and the left ventricle. It is called left auriculoventricular septum. Now, there are lot of valves opening into the auricles. Let us see what they are and how the blood flows in the heart. How deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood have a separate route to travel. If you look at this region, there is a slight depression that you see. So this depression that you see here is actually the remnant or the remain of foramen ovale. Foramen ovale, which was once present in the embryonic stage, and later this opening which was present in the embryo closes during birth. Yes, by the time the baby is born, this opening closes, and still the remnant is seen in our heart, and you call this as fossa ovalis. Fossa ovalis. Now you must have heard about people saying there is a hole in the heart. Yes, the baby is born with a hole in the heart. So when they are referring to the hole in the heart, they are not talking about any hole there inside the heart, but they are talking about this opening which is still not completely closed once the baby is born. So that is what you mean when they say there is a hole in the heart. Let us label this. This is the right auricle. This is the right ventricle. This is the left auricle, and this is going to be the left ventricle. Now, if you note, the wall of the auricles, yes, it is thin. when you compare it to the wall of the ventricles. Especially if you look at the wall of the left ventricle, it is 3 times thicker than that of the auricular wall. Yes, the walls of the auricles are much thin, or you can say that the walls of the left ventricle are 3 times thicker than these auricular walls. It's not valve, I'm talking about the wall. So here also it is much more thicker compared to the auricular walls, but still the thickest you find it for the left ventricle. What should be the reason behind this? We know that oxygenated blood to the entire body is going to be supplied from the left ventricle. Aorta is going to take it to all parts of the body. So that is the reason why the wall of the left ventricle is 3 times thicker than the right auricle. In order to denote that the left ventricle wall is much thicker, I have drawn it this way. Okay. Now these structures that you see here, this is the inferior vena cava. Inferior vena cava. Or you can also call it as the post caval. So the post caval vein. We know that all veins carry deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary vein. So the deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body is brought, from all the lower parts of the body is brought by the post caval vein or the inferior vena cava, and it will open into the right auricle. So this will come from all the lower parts. Whereas the structure that you see here, that is the superior vena cava. So this is the superior vena cava, or it is otherwise called the precaval. So this is going to bring blood from the upper parts of the body, head region, neck region, that is above the heart, all those regions. The deoxygenated blood is brought to the right auricle. Now once the deoxygenated blood pours into the right auricle, what happens? The auricles will contract, the right auricle will contract, allowing the blood to move into the right ventricle. So once the blood has moved into the right ventricle, we don't want the blood to go back again. Yes, so in order to prevent this, what is there? Here there are valves. Okay, the tricuspid valve. Tricuspid valves are present here. So why do you call it as tricuspid? If you look from top, it has 3 cusps like this. So because of such an arrangement, you call the valve present here as a tricuspid valve. Because of the presence of this valve, once the blood from the right auricle is poured into the right ventricle, the blood will not go back. At once these valves will close in order to prevent the blood from going back. Now if you look at the inferior vena cava, yes, this also has valves so that the blood doesn't go backward. The opening that you see here in the right auricle, that is nothing but the coronary sinus. Now this coronary sinus is going to bring deoxygenated blood from the heart, from the walls of the heart. We know that even heart is supplied with oxygenated blood, and that is taken to the heart by the coronary artery. Similarly, the coronary sinus is going to open into the right auricle, and all the deoxygenated blood from the walls of the heart will be poured into the right auricle. Now, if you look at this precaval vein or the superior vena cava, it is not provided with any valve. It does not contain any valve. Whereas if you take the inferior vena cava or the postcaval and the coronary sinus, both have valves. Now, why both have valves? In order to prevent the backward flow of blood. Then, why superior vena cava is not having a valve? It's because it's opening at an angle into the right auricle. So, imagine this is the auricles. When the auricles contract, and let us imagine that this is the superior vena cava. So, when the auricles are going to contract or shrink here, automatically these openings are going to close. The opening of the superior vena cava will close. So, there is no need of another valve, an extra valve. But whereas here the inferior vena cava and coronary sinus is not opening in that way. It's the superior vena cava is opening against gravity. So, the blood cannot go back. Whereas in the case of inferior vena cava and coronary sinus, they have valves. So, the valve of the coronary sinus is called valve of Thebatius. The coronary sinus has valves and it is called valve of Thebatius. Whereas the inferior vena cava has a valve and it is named as the valve of Eustachius. So, valve of Eustachius is present in the inferior vena cava. Now, let us look at the bigger blood vessels which are going to supply blood to and from the heart. If you look at this one, yes, let me rub the structures which are inside here to show you the passage or the movement of blood. Now, if you look here, this is the aorta, the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, the aorta is going to take oxygenated blood to all parts. So, this is the route there. Yes, the left ventricle is taking the oxygenated blood. Here you can see the aorta branching, carotid artery, subclavian to the shoulder, carotid. Yes, so this aorta comes down and it branches and supplies blood to the entire body. So that is the biggest blood vessel in our body. Whereas the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle. So this is the route from the right ventricle. Yes. So this is the route that it is going to follow. So this right ventricle, from the right ventricle, the pulmonary artery, yes, the pulmonary artery is going to take the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle and it is taken and it branches into two, each